あなた、
ん
これ見てくれない？
やってる。俺は明日も早いから、寝るな。
This isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about loneliness. The kind that grows quietly inside a marriage, where love has faded, but routine still survives.
私、カホだよ。
カホ?
What would you do if the person who still held your heart came back? Just when you had convinced yourself to let them go.
じゃあ、私帰るね。やめて。私たちはもうただの他人だから。
Stay with me. This story will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and happiness. Sometimes love quietly disappears, not with a fight, not with shouting, but through silent mornings and empty smiles. Her name is Kaho. She used to be the kind of woman people envy, the kind with soft eyes, a gentle smile, and a heart so full of love that even the neighbors would talk about how happy she looked. Every morning, at precisely 7:30, Kaho would stand by the door, watching Adams, her husband, as he left for work. With a light wave of her hand and a soft, "Take care," she sent him off into the world. For her, that moment was happiness. It meant love. It meant security. But people change. It didn't happen overnight, no. It was gradual, like autumn leaves falling one by one, until you suddenly realize the trees are bare.
あなた、これ見てくれない？
世話になってる。
Adams stopped looking at her the way he used to. Stopped asking how her day went. Stopped noticing when she stayed up late or when she put extra effort into the meals she cooked. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't unfaithful. He was simply distant. And loneliness has a strange hunger. It creeps in quietly when you're folding laundry, when you're stirring soup, when you're with someone who doesn't care about you anymore. At first, Kaho distracted herself with small things. Cleaning, baking, gardening. Then, like many women her age, she found herself scrolling through social networks during long afternoons when Adams was at work and the house felt too silent. One day, while sipping tea and absent-mindedly swiping through photos of strangers' perfect lives, her heart skipped a beat. There it was, his face, older of course, a little more weathered, but unmistakably him. Henry. The name alone tasted bittersweet on her tongue. Her first love, the boy she had dated back when life was simpler, back when her heart still believed in forever, back when goodbye wasn't something she thought would last this long. They hadn't ended badly. There was no betrayal, no drama, just the painful reality that sometimes life pulls people apart before they're ready. Careers, families, expectations. They had gone their separate ways, promising to wish each other well. But seeing his face again, it stirred something inside her that she thought she had buried for good. That day, curiosity burned hotter than fear. She clicked. She followed. She sent a message.
Hi, do you still remember me?
Seconds stretched into minutes. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then, a reply. Of course, he remembered. How could he forget? They messaged cautiously at first, a little catching up, a little polite small talk. But under it all was something deeper, something unspoken, a shared ache for a time when love had been pure and easy. Days turned into weeks. Messages turned into late-night conversations. Smiles turned into laughter she hadn't heard from herself in years. And then, like a secret she couldn't keep from herself anymore, they decided to meet. Not at a romantic place, not at some hidden cafe or dimly lit restaurant, just on a street. Two people who used to know each other well, now standing as strangers, holding the weight of years between them. When Henry saw her, he didn't recognize her at first. Time had changed them both, but something in her eyes, it pulled him back to the boy he once was, the boy who had loved her fiercely and lost her too soon. Their conversation was awkward at first, light, meaningless. Weather, work, life. He invited her over coffee in his quiet apartment. They shared stories of where life had taken them. Then he asked, as if confirming something impossible, "Kaho?" And when she smiled, he knew. Yes, it was her.
私カホだよ。
カホ
Something inside him tightened. Nostalgia? Regret? Or hope? His surprise was genuine when she said she had been his Kaho all
そ
along.
んな変わる
変わるよ。私たちそれぞれ結婚をしたんだよ。
He wanted to hold her, wanted to ask why fate was so cruel to bring them together again, only now, too late. But Kaho pulled back, politely, firmly. She belonged to another man now,
私
a husband waiting at home,
やめて。
however cold that home had become.
私たちはも
Henry felt the ache of letting her go. Again. But beneath that ache, a quiet joy lingered. He had seen her again. She had remembered him. That in itself felt like a small miracle. Yet, as she walked away into the night, neither of them realized this wasn't over. That night stayed with Kaho long after she returned home. Adams was there, as usual. Dinner was ready. The house was clean. Everything looked perfect on the outside. But inside Kaho, something had cracked open. Kaho moved through life like a ghost. She cooked. She cleaned. She smiled when necessary. She tried harder than ever to be the wife Adams deserved, or at least the wife he expected. She thought maybe, if she put more effort in, she could fix what had been broken between them. She started waking up earlier to prepare his favorite breakfasts, left little notes in his briefcase like she used to in the early days. She even planned a weekend getaway for the two of them, thinking maybe a change of scenery could reignite something between them. But Adams barely noticed. Her efforts felt like raindrops on stone, gentle, persistent, but powerless to change its shape. And somewhere, not far away, Henry was thinking of her too. Henry found excuses to message her. At first, Kaho resisted. Politely, she left messages unread, replied late, kept things distant. But loneliness chips away at even the strongest walls. One afternoon, when the house felt too big and her heart too small, she answered his call. They talked for hours. Not about love, not about the past, just life, fears, dreams, how strange adulthood had turned out to be. Henry didn't hide how he felt, not anymore. He told her plainly, "I've thought about you all these years. I never stopped wondering, what if?" Kaho's heart raced, but her answer was firm.
I can't. I'm married. I have responsibilities.
He nodded. He respected her. That's what made it harder. But his words stayed with her long after the call ended. They met again, by accident at first, then not so accidentally. A shared coffee, a quiet walk in the park, small things, innocent things. Yet every meeting pulled her deeper into the questions she didn't want to ask herself. Could she live the rest of her life like this? Henry didn't pressure her. He wasn't that kind of man. Henry said the words she knew were coming, but still wasn't ready to hear. "I still love you, Kaho. I never stopped." Kaho smiled, softly, sadly. She left him, his heart breaking for the second time in his life. But what she didn't tell him was the truth. She wanted to stay. She wanted to turn around. Instead, she went home, back to Adams, back to the life she chose, back to pretending. But something had already begun to unravel. The days that followed were quieter than ever, but not in the way Kaho had hoped. She forced herself into routines, but no matter how much she tried, the ache grew heavier, because Henry wasn't gone. He lived in her thoughts now, like an unfinished song, humming at the edges of every moment. Henry hadn't given up either, and finally Kaho said yes. They met again, and again, not secretly, not shamefully, just quietly, carefully. He didn't ask her to leave Adams. He never would, and she didn't offer. But between them bloomed something fragile and undeniable, a tenderness that hadn't died with youth, a connection that no ring on her finger could erase. At home, she remained the perfect wife, cooking, cleaning, caring, smiling at the right times, responding with warmth. Adams never suspected. Why would he? Nothing seemed out of place. But Kaho knew. She knew she wasn't the woman she had been before Henry came back. She wasn't lonely anymore. She wasn't hollow. Because now, in the quiet spaces of her life, there was someone else holding her heart. With Henry, she wasn't a wife. She was simply Kaho. They never spoke of the future, never made promises. They just existed in quiet. And maybe that's the lesson buried inside this story. Sometimes, happiness doesn't look like a wedding ring. Sometimes, happiness is messy, complicated, silent, hidden, but it's still happiness. And Kaho, for the first time in years, she felt alive again. She finally stopped lying to herself. And in this imperfect, fragile, borrowed love, she found the part of her heart she thought was lost forever.